Are you studying for the IELTS or TOEFL exam? Do you want to have better conversations in English? If the answer to those two questions is yes, well, then this is the perfect English lesson for you. In today's English lesson, we are going to watch a video from a place called Watch Mojo. They have all of these lists. And today's list is 10 historical figures with terrible secrets. So today you are going to learn about 50 new terms, one of the longest lessons I have ever done. And you will also learn some secrets, some very bad secrets about some very famous men. Yes, these 10 historical figures are all famous men. You know what? I should say 9 historical figures. There is one we are going to skip. I don't even want to say his name. He is such a bad guy. Maybe you can guess. If that sounds interesting to you, please go ahead, hit that like button, and let's watch the first clip together.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the darkest secrets from some of the past's most famous figures.
In terms of ruthlessness, bloodlust, Stalin remains one of the greatest villains of the 20th century.
Charles Dickens.
Everything in order, Mr. Dickens? No, it is not.
You'll probably know the author Dickens for his famous novels like Oliver Twist and A Christmas Carol. Well, behind the scenes, he was quite fond of the occasional prank. This included telling strangers incredibly long and confusing jokes. His most infamous prank was grabbing a random woman at the beach, then almost drowning her. Dickens declared he loved her, and therefore they should drown together. His wife tried to intervene, but it didn't seem to stop him. Other secrets of his include a magician persona, having an affair with a woman 27 years younger, and another with his sister-in-law.
She is the mother of your children. How could you be so cruel to
And
her?
for that I shall always be grateful. But I do not love her. She comprehends nothing.
So for most of these historical figures, I am going to give you a couple more facts about them. We have Charles Dickens right here. I can make his picture a little bigger. He was born on February 7th, 1812, and he died on June 9th, 1870. And you can see in the picture, there are 5 of his most famous books: Oliver Twist, A Tale of Two Cities, and all the way at the end is A Christmas Carol. He wrote A Christmas Carol in just 6 weeks. Now, I know in the picture, it looks like to be one of his longer books, but it is actually one of his shorter books. He had a rough life growing up, so he lived over 200 years ago in England, and guess what? They didn't have child labor laws. You could basically work at any age, and he started working at age 12. When Dickens was only 12 years old, he worked in a factory labeling bottles to help his family. This experience later influenced his writing about poor children. Super sad little guy. You can see he is putting on labels on those bottles. And I also have 50 terms for you. Some will have pictures, some won't, but they will all have the official definition, and I will use it in at least one sentence to help you understand the term. Ruthlessness. Ruthlessness. They said that in the video. It means not caring if people get hurt to get what you want. Many of these men were ruthless. That is the adjective to describe someone who has ruthlessness. The dictator ruled with ruthlessness, hurting anyone who stood in his way. Later, we will talk about Joseph Stalin. Yeah, I think that guy was pretty ruthless. What if something is in order? That means arranged the right way, correct, or organized. The names on the list are in order from A to Z. Yes, the last letter of the English alphabet, we say Z here in the United States. I'm pretty sure in Canada and the UK, they say Z. I want to get everything in order before my big trip. Love this word. They used the word infamous in the video. That means famous for something bad. He became infamous for his crimes during the war. Some of the men on this list are infamous, like that guy. We are not going to talk about him. I'm not even going to say his name, and Stalin. If you want to watch the original video from watchmojo.com, I will leave a link to that in the description. Also, if you would like to practice speaking with me one-on-one, maybe you are looking for a speaking tutor, I can be that guy. Also, take a look in the description for a link that will give you more information. The next word we have, number 4, is intervene. That means to step in and try to help or stop something. And you can see I have a picture right there with a sentence that uses intervene. The teacher had to intervene when the students started fighting. Persona. Persona is the next one. That is the image or personality someone shows to others. It might not be the real person. He had a friendly persona, but he was actually very selfish. Most of the guys on this list seem to be quite selfish. They want everything for themselves. They don't think too much about what other people think or what other people need.
King Edward VIII. He was one of the shortest reigning kings in history, ruling Britain for only 326 days. Edward stepped down to marry a divorced American woman, an outrageous scandal in 1936.
I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility without the help and support of the woman I love.
That wasn't his worst controversy, however. It was instead his suspected Nazi sympathies. In 1939, he made a public address to, quote, come to terms with Nazi Germany, which the BBC refused to broadcast.
That twisted ideology of Nazism that appealed to him.
Some historians believe he further collaborated with Nazis during the war, encouraging the bombing of Britain. These were revealed in the Marburg Files, but Winston Churchill and others suppressed them to minimize scandal. As such, we may never know the full extent of his fascist sympathies.
Even his weaknesses and his character didn't really prepare me for the sheer audacity of the way he behaved.
They also talked about Edward VIII. He was born on June 23rd, 1894, and died on May 28th, 1972. He lived to be 77 years old. How about this word, abdication? Abdication. He gave up the throne in December of 1936 so he could marry Wallis Simpson. She was an American woman who had been divorced. So because he married her, he had to abdicate the throne. He had to give up being king. Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson never had children. The Duke and Duchess of Windsor had no kids. The next one we have is comprehends. Comprehends. I hope you are comprehending most of what I am saying. Comprehends means to understand something. She comprehends the lesson very well. The next word we have here is rain. Now notice the way it is spelled. It has nothing to do with the weather that comes from the sky. No, this type of rain, even though it sounds like the wet stuff, it is the time when a king, queen, or leader is in power. During his reign, the country was at war. Do you know this English phrasal verb, stepped down? That means quit a powerful job. The president stepped down after the scandal. In the United States, we have only had one president to step down while he was in office. That guy was Richard Nixon. This happened in the 1970s. He got caught doing something bad. In the video, they said King Edward VIII had sympathies towards a very bad group of people during World War II. Sympathies means feelings or support or care for someone. And I actually have a picture for this one. He showed sympathies for the victims of the war. So in that case, sympathies is a good thing. But if you have sympathies for bad people, well, of course, that is not good. Let's read that sentence below to help you with your English reading, something you will have to do on the IELTS or TOEFL exam. They said King Edward VIII was a Nazi sympathizer. I might beep out that word that starts with N in that sentence. YouTube might get angry if I say it. Those people that start with N definitely had a twisted ideology. They used it in the video. Let's talk about it here. A very wrong or harmful way of thinking. The group followed a twisted ideology that caused pain to others. Collaborated. That means work together with someone. He collaborated with the enemy during the war. But collaborating with someone like at work can be a good thing. Do you remember last summer when Bob the Canadian and I collaborated on a few English lessons? That was a fun time. Maybe we will do that again next summer. I was lucky that I could collaborate with my best friend at work on a very important project. The next one is suppressed. Suppressed means stopped by force or pressure. The government suppressed the protest. I had to suppress my laughter because we were in a quiet theater. Again, that means to stop something from happening. So I had to stop the laughter from coming out of my mouth. Fascist. That's the next one. Fascist. A person who supports a very strict and unfair government. The fascist leader didn't allow for free speech. I don't hear of too many governments called fascist. This is the most popular one, I think. One example of a fascist government would be Italy under Mussolini during World War II. Audacity. Great word here. Audacity. I can't believe you had the audacity to do that. It means bold or rude courage. He had the audacity to lie to the police. Yeah, that takes a lot of guts to lie to the police and also probably some stupidity. Odious acts. What are those? Very hateful or disgusting actions. The leader was punished for his odious acts against people. And it seems like all of the men we are talking about today had at least one odious act, maybe two.
Pablo Picasso.
We've all been there, scrolling through our daily feed only to discover that yet another person whose work we've at some point appreciated has said terrible things or committed odious acts.
In the 20th century, Picasso became one of Spain's most famous artists. Most of us are familiar with at least some of his work, but fewer of us are aware of how misogynistic the man was. Nowadays, people are becoming increasingly aware of his toxic tendencies. Despicably, he once said, quote, "There are only two types of women, goddesses and doormats."
Picasso's mistreatment of women and flagrant misogyny has been no secret to anyone who has studied his work or read anything about his life.
There are many stories of him being abusive towards women, including having an affair with a teenager while he was already married, only to cheat on her later on in life as well. It was barely discussed during his lifetime, but it undeniably leaked into his artwork. It's ironic when you learn that he was a staunch communist, an ideology often tied to feminism.
Can we divorce the art from the artist? And should we?
Let's talk about that guy, Pablo Picasso. He was born on October 25th, 1881 in Spain and died on April 8th, 1973 in France. He lived a long time, therefore he was productive. What does that mean? That means they produced a lot of art. Let's get the sentence here. He made about 50,000 artworks, including paintings, sculptures, drawings, and ceramics. Here is a picture of something that could be called a ceramic. What about one of three presidents we are going to talk about today? At least US presidents. We'll talk about Grant, we'll talk about Kennedy, and we will talk about Jefferson. Grant is first. He was born on April 27th, 1822 in the state called Ohio and died July 23rd, 1885 in the state of New York. He was our 18th president. He served as president from 1869 to 1877. And in case you didn't know, Grant's face is on the US $50 bill.
Ulysses S. Grant. The 18th President of the United States and a Union Army general fought hard to abolish slavery.
Grant is the unheroic hero of our greatest national epic.
Despite opposing slavery, there is sufficient evidence to say he harbored racist beliefs. As president, he allowed white settlers to take indigenous lands. He favored the assimilation of Native Americans, which is considered cultural genocide. Additionally, Grant was the last president to own a slave, whom he thankfully freed. In 1862, he controversially issued General Order No. 11, which forcibly expelled all Jewish people from his district.
The most anti-Jewish official order in all of American history, the only time Jews as a class have been expelled.
In 1871, he hoped to move all American people of color to the Dominican Republic. Grant thought this was an ideal solution to racial tensions in the South.
This is something very bad. Misogynistic. Misogynistic. That means hating or being unfair to women. His misogynistic comments made many people angry. And if a person acts like that, you can call them a misogynist. Toxic tendencies. Toxic tendencies. If you have a tendency, it means you do it often. Toxic tendencies, repeating harmful or negative behaviors. He had toxic tendencies like yelling at people and blaming others. Number 18. Remember, we have 50 in this English lesson. If you are still watching, congratulations. Maybe watch it a couple times or maybe take a break, come back to it later. But the next one we have is despicably. Despicably, it means in a way that is very bad or shameful. He acted despicably by hurting innocent people. It was truly despicable that he got fired right before Christmas. Many Americans celebrate Christmas. Many Americans spend a lot of money during Christmas. It would be horrible if somebody got fired right before Christmas. I mean, wait until after Christmas to fire that person. A doormat. Now, right over there is a picture of what a doormat looks like. You might place it before your front door so when guests come over, they can wipe their feet off before walking into the house. But in the video, they used it as an idiom. They said that people were treated like doormats, and that means people who let others treat them badly without fighting back. Some of his friends were doormats and never stood up to him. Flagrant. Flagrant. That means very obvious and bad. His flagrant lies shocked the whole country. Take a look at this picture. It is of a soccer game, right? Or at least we call that game soccer in the United States. The soccer player committed a flagrant foul right in front of the referee.
It was barely discussed during his lifetime, but it undeniably leaked into his artwork. It's ironic when you learn that he was a staunch communist, an ideology often tied to feminism.
Can we divorce the art from the artist? And should we?
Ulysses S. Grant. The 18th President of the United States and a Union Army general fought hard to abolish slavery.
Grant is the unheroic hero of our greatest national epic.
Despite opposing slavery, there is sufficient evidence to say he harbored racist beliefs. As president, he allowed white settlers to take indigenous lands. He favored the assimilation of Native Americans, which is considered cultural genocide. Additionally, Grant was the last president to own a slave, whom he thankfully freed. In 1862, he controversially issued General Order No. 11, which forcibly expelled all Jewish people from his district.
The most anti-Jewish official order in all of American history, the only time Jews as a class have been expelled.
In 1871, he hoped to move all American people of color to the Dominican Republic. Grant thought this was an ideal solution to racial tensions in the South.
You're still watching? Congratulations. We are about halfway done. I think this might be a 45-minute lesson or so. So stick with it. Your English is improving with every word. Undeniably means clearly true, cannot be argued. He is undeniably one of the most powerful people in the world. And I think this sentence is true. Let me know, please. This English lesson will undeniably help you improve your English. I do think that is true. Here we have for number 22 a very difficult one, and it's ironic. When I used to teach middle school, I would spend about a week teaching ironic and a few other terms. It's kind of difficult, but it is the opposite of what you expect, often in a funny or strange way. It's ironic that the man who preached peace started a war. Now, I am an English teacher, and for 20 years or so, I have taught students how to read. It would be really ironic if I, as a reading teacher, had kids of my own children, if they were like the worst readers in their class. That would be ironic. Let's take firefighters. They live at a fire station when they are at work. Imagine somebody cooking a meal and starting a fire at a fire station. That would be ironic. That would be the last place you would expect to see a fire. How about this next one? 23, staunch. Staunch, it means loyal and strong in your beliefs. She was a staunch defender of human rights. Hopefully this is true for you. She was a staunch English learner. She never missed a class. Next, we have communist. Communist. This is a person who supports a system where the government owns everything and everyone shares equally. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, right? But usually when countries have tried communism, they've tried to have their citizens become communists, it doesn't work out. Those leaders usually get greedy and they want more money, more things for themselves. They don't usually share. He was a communist who believed in sharing all property. Another one that ends with ISM. Well, we had communist, earlier. You could have communism. What about feminism? And a person who practices feminism is a feminist. But feminism is the belief that women should have equal rights to men. She supports feminism and fights for equal pay for women. There is what you would call someone who believes in feminism. She is a feminist. And I am definitely a feminist. I hope women and men can have equal rights all around the world. And I don't know, I was thinking as we were watching these 10 men who have horrible secrets, some of them were very powerful. Would the world be better if women were the leaders? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Okay, let's take a break from some of the terms and start talking more about these men. Some were okay men, but all of them had terrible secrets. John F. Kennedy. He is often just called JFK because his name is so long, but he was born on May 29th, 1917 in Massachusetts and killed or assassinated on November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. And next to him in the picture, we will talk more about her later, but that is his wife, Jackie Kennedy. Now, more about John F. Kennedy, or JFK. He became president at age 43, making him the youngest person ever elected to the office. 43. Think about our last two presidents in the United States. They have been ancient. They have been really old. Biden was at least 80 and Trump is almost 80, very close. This next guy, Alexander Graham Bell. Now, I thought he was an American. He is the guy who is credited as inventing the telephone, but no, he was born in Scotland, March 3rd, 1843, and he died in 1922 in Canada. And I didn't know this until I started researching, but during his funeral, so after he died, all telephone services in the United States stopped for 1 minute in his honor. So hopefully you didn't need any emergency services like an ambulance or anything like that. Hopefully you didn't have a fire at your house. The next guy I would like to talk about is another president, the last president we'll talk about. He was our third president, and he was born in Virginia on April 13th, 1743. He died on Independence Day. Yeah, the United States celebrates independence, or the time when we got our freedom from the British, on July 4th. And he died on July 4th, 1826. I will make this a little bigger, but in the picture, you will see his home. You can visit it still to this day. It is in Virginia, and it's called Monticello. He designed his own home, Monticello, and other buildings. And in Italian, Monticello literally means small hill.
John F. Kennedy.
Jack's promiscuity, is learned as a young man from watching his father.
They had a sense of entitlement about what they could do that other people couldn't do, what they could get away with.
JFK's presidency was monumental for a few reasons. He was Catholic, only 43 when elected, and also the last president to be assassinated.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
To make him more likable, he kept a lot of secrets. For instance, he had constant affairs. The most famous was with Marilyn Monroe, but he also slept with women associated with mob bosses, at least 2 rumored Soviet spies, a few actresses, and some White House secretaries.
There's no secret that he was cheating on her constantly, and she was aware of it. She looked the other way, in part because that was how she was raised in the upper echelon of society to accept it.
Alongside this, JFK had major health problems, which he treated with a wide range of narcotics. This was because he suffered from Addison's disease, caused by steroid prescriptions when he was young. As such, it had to be kept top secret.
Promiscuity is the next one. Promiscuity. That means having strong relationships with many people. And since this is a family channel, I'm going to let you decide what strong relationships mean. Well, in the video, they said John F. Kennedy had many mistresses. Did they use that word mistress? That means like you're married to someone, but you're also like dating other women. So he had a lot of mistresses. He was promiscuous. That is the adjective to describe someone. The movie showed a character whose promiscuity caused problems in her life. It can go both ways. Men can be promiscuous, women can be promiscuous, and both men and women can have a sense of entitlement. That means the feeling that you deserve special treatment or things without earning them. He had a sense of entitlement and expected everyone to help him. Hopefully you don't know anyone who thinks they are better than other people. They have this sense of entitlement. Number 29, what if something is monumental? That is definitely an adjective describing something, and it means very big, important, or impressive. Winning the championship was a monumental moment for the team. Mob bosses. They said JFK dated some women who were connected to mob bosses. Those are leaders of organized crime groups. The police arrested 2 mob bosses for running illegal businesses. Jackie Kennedy, I said earlier we would talk more about her. She was the wife of U.S. President John F. Kennedy, known for her style and grace. Jackie Kennedy was admired for her fashion and kindness. She was at one time the First Lady of the United States. The First Lady is what we call the wives of presidents. Next, we have the upper echelon. The upper echelon, that is the highest level or group in an organization or society. She worked hard to join the upper echelon of the company. Narcotics. They said JFK took a lot of narcotics. Those are illegal drugs that can make people sleepy or relieve pain. I was distracted. Somebody is mowing the lawn outside here. Police found narcotics hidden in the car. Steroids. Steroids in English, that means a drug that can help build muscle or reduce swelling, but can be dangerous if abused. So if you get sick, the doctor might prescribe a steroid, but some people like bodybuilders will abuse steroids and get like really big muscles. The athlete was banned for using steroids. Yeah, the Olympics, they do not allow the athletes to use steroids.
Alexander Graham Bell. In the 19th century, his invention of the telephone made him one of Scotland's most famous figures.
Watson, come here. I want to see you.
I heard you. I heard what you said.
Outside of inventing, he dedicated a lot of energy to researching eugenics. He specifically concerned himself with deaf people, whom he was strongly connected to as both his parents and wife were deaf. Bell believed that if deaf people married other deaf people, then a, quote, deaf race could arise. While eugenics was a popular study at the time thanks to Darwin's recent research on evolution, Bell also focused on the education of deaf people and has been criticized for, quote, supporting ideas that could cause the closure of dozens of deaf schools. On a less horrifying note, he had a 30-year-long interest in breeding a sheep with 4 nipples.
Oh boy, this is bad. Eugenics. Eugenics. The idea of controlling who can have children to improve the human race. This is often linked to unfair or harmful ideas. It seemed like during World War II, eugenics was a big thing. For example, if somebody wasn't smart enough, or some people thought this person wasn't smart enough, they might make it so that person can't have children. Eugenics was used in the past to discriminate against certain groups. Deaf. Deaf is 36. That means not able to hear or having very little hearing. My cousin is deaf, so we talk using sign language. And sign language is basically using your hands to speak to someone else who is deaf or can't hear. Revered. Revered, that means deeply respected or admired. Nelson Mandela is revered around the world for his fight for freedom. Now, luckily, Nelson Mandela did not make this list of 10 men who have bad secrets. As far as I know, he was a great man and later became president of South Africa. Cultivated, that means developed or improved through care and effort. She cultivated her singing skills by practicing every day. Right now, by watching this English lesson, you are cultivating your English skills. Revolving doors. When you hear revolving, think like going in a circle. Doors that turn in a circle, also used to describe people moving in and out of jobs or positions quickly. The hotel entrance had big revolving doors. As some of you know, I am a high school teacher in the United States. I have worked in some schools where there were revolving doors. And by that, I mean someone would take a job for a year or two and then move on. They would get a job at another place, mostly because the school wasn't very fun to work at. Luckily, my current school is great. Most of the teachers stay. I'm sure you know father or dad, but did you know father could become a verb? Fathered, to be the father of a child. He fathered 3 children before moving to another city. Oh my goodness, did he take those children with him or did he just leave them in the city? I hope he took them with him. All right, Sally Hemings, she was talked about when the video talked about Thomas Jefferson. She was an enslaved woman who lived at Thomas Jefferson's home and is believed to have had children with him. So in the video, they say it's possible. I think DNA has proven this is true. Thomas Jefferson fathered some children with his slave named Sally Hemings. I mean, slaves do not have their freedom, so is it even possible she could have told him no? Historians study the life of Sally Hemings to understand more about slavery and U.S. history.
Thomas Jefferson. The United States' 3rd president can be highly revered in the States, but had a dark side few discuss.
Jefferson's life that we get from his autobiography is very carefully edited and cultivated.
Despite the Constitution stating all men are created equal, Jefferson believed some were more equal than others. During his life, he owned over 600 slaves. At his dinner parties, he took great effort to hide them. This included a fireplace panel where they would deliver wine, and guests would receive food through revolving doors. Even though slaves were responsible, guests would never hear or see them. Jefferson also secretly fathered multiple children with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings, as proven by later DNA tests.
Felt about him? Who knows? Being owned is not exactly a desirable state of affairs.
Joseph Stalin.
In terms of ruthlessness, bloodlust, Stalin remains one of the greatest villains of the 20th century.
Almost all aspects of Stalin were exceedingly horrific, regardless of whether they were secret or not. Publicly, he hated capitalism and all things Western. In private, he was a huge cinephile who loved Hollywood movies. That's pretty tame compared to his secret prison outside of Moscow, the Sukhanovskaya prison. In its 14-year existence, it had 35,000 occupants, and few of them survived the experience. Towards the end of his rule, he fabricated a plot that Jewish doctors were trying to assassinate officials. Stalin used this as an excuse to do horrifying things to Jewish Russians, but thankfully died before it escalated. Given his nature, there are probably even more disgusting secrets we'll never know. King Leopold II of Belgium.
European countries participated in the so-called Scramble for Africa. They colonized 90% of the continent, exploiting African resources and enriching their countries.
One of the most brutal men in history was Leopold II, who personally owned the Congo Free State for 23 years. It's very rare for a colony to be owned by one man, and Leopold proved it was a disastrous idea.
Leopold II wanted to acquire what he called a slice of this magnificent African cake.
It was a disgusting regime, which caused the deaths of millions, but was kept largely secret. That was until E.D. Morel and Roger Casement made the horrors public, causing a huge international backlash. The king denied many of these claims, but the evidence said otherwise.
Yet it took the recent emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement to question why Leopold is still celebrated in Belgium.
Bloodlust. This is not good either. Bloodlust is a strong desire to hurt or kill. The villain in the movie had a bloodlust that made him dangerous. Capitalism. A lot of times when a word in English ends with ism, it can be very difficult. Capitalism. That is an economic system or a system for money where businesses are owned by people, not the government. And people try to make a profit. They try to make money. It's almost the opposite of communism. In capitalism, companies compete to sell the best products. Cinephile. I'm a cinephile. Are you a cinephile? A cinephile is a person who loves movies. As a cinephile, she watches 3 movies every weekend. Occupants. Occupants, those are people who live in or are inside a place. The fire alarm warned all the occupants to leave the building. Fabricated. This has a lot to do with lying or not telling the truth. Made up or invented, not true. He fabricated a story to avoid getting in trouble. The scramble for Africa. We have covered a lot of topics here on this English lesson, but the scramble for Africa is what we call in English a time in history when European countries took over much of Africa for resources and power. This happened in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. The scramble for Africa changed the borders and governments of many African countries. Most of Africa during that time was exploited for its resources. Let's talk about what exploited means. Using someone or something in an unfair way for your own benefit. The factory was accused of exploiting workers by paying them very little. Backlash. Backlash, a strong negative reaction to something. The politician faced backlash after making a controversial comment. Emergence. Number 50, the process of coming into view or becoming known. Emerge is the verb that goes along with this word. The emergence of new technology changed the way we communicate. Thanks to new technology, I am able to teach this lesson to you, and you are in another part of the world. Pretty awesome, I think. Congratulations, you made it to the end of a very complicated, very long English lesson. If you're looking for more English lessons, right down there is a whole playlist that YouTube thinks you are going to like. Don't forget, if you would like to have one-on-one conversations with me, I can record them, send them to you to help you improve your English speaking. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.